If more of you supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah blah blah.
Sending out good vibes.
The blah blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
The blah blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection. And put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track. Shivers or vibrations and stuff like that.
The drive to understand consciousness is, I mean, whatever it is, your aunt's poltergeist, your night terrors, your synchronicities and deja vus and stuff.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerican Show. We are going to be chatting with Whitney Fox a little bit later. And we've got the $50 Dynasty band out of Texas, the Brothers of Serpent. Of course, Kyle from Brothers of Serpent headlining that, or lead singer for that. So that's part of the introduction. Of course, Graham is not here this week because he is down in Spokane getting ready to kick off our Montana Mega Flood tour with Randall Carlson tomorrow. And I'll be heading down Wednesday to meet up with those guys in Montana. They're in Idaho today, or Washington today, Idaho tomorrow, Montana on Wednesday. If you guys want to get in on some of those events that we do, head over to contact@thecabin.com. We got a couple Scablands tours coming up in Washington this fall with Randall Carlson. Unfortunately, Egypt is sold out, but we got some cool stuff coming up next year. Magic on the Mountain in California, 420 party down in Utah. We got an Eclipse event that'll be coming up soon. So head over to contact@thecabin.com. Check out the events. Get on the waiting list for something. Join the mailing list so you don't miss anything. All that stuff. Other than that, support the show, guys. Grimerica.ca/support. Sign up for a monthly. Make a one-time donation if you can, when you can. It's more important than ever that you support the show. Support what you love. If you think we're doing a good job over here, if you're getting some value from our little podcast, head over to Grimerica.ca/support today. Send some value back our way. Head over to adultbrain.ca for the audiobooks. Over 60 titles available now. A Canadian Shame for my book. The new book of mine is In Their Own Words. So if you guys want to grab those, that'd be cool too. Join the chats, get into the conversation. Grimerica.ca/chats. I'll leave it at that, guys. We got this fantastic chat with the band down in Texas, and then we'll jump into it with Whitney Fox, which is a little bit longer of an interview as well. So nice long episode for you guys. And next week will probably be just me because Graham will still be out of town. All right, guys, enjoy. Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerican Show. I'm not sure who we're going to be chatting with later, but we've got here for a little special intro. Join us for an intro. Our buddy Kyle from the Brothers of the Serpent does all our events with us. And, of course, has a kick-ass band. So we got Archer and Tyrell down here with us, and they're going to join us, tell them about their new album. It's super cool because they're doing some value-for-value stuff, which
That's right.
we take pretty seriously here in Grimerica. We've, kind of go with this value-for-value thing where you guys are supposed to send us more money than you do. But, that's the nature of the relationship. So I've been lucky to meet all these guys already in the flesh. Archer's nice enough to let me play with his guns when I was down in Texas. And the next thing you know, I have a giant collection of guns of my own.
Look at what you've done, Archer.
I know.
I mean,
Whoa. Only took a few days in Texas.
You've created a monster.
Yeah.
I've created a patriot. That's what I've created.
He just bought a new toy named Just in Time.
It's unofficially named after Trudeau.
Okay.
Because he's doing a handgun freeze, so I rushed out and bought it.
Oh, just in time.
Yeah, it's a Ruger.
Yeah, I think I saw that. I think he sent me.
I sent you a pic. I sent you a pic
of it. Yeah, man.
So, Kyle, introduce the band and give us a little background on where you guys are from. I mean, you guys have obviously been at it for a while.
Yes.
I was already watching your stuff when we first met you. back in 2019 and watching some of your live stuff, and that shit was already amazing. And it's just
man.
come a long way. I know you posted pictures of you in the studio, and there's like 50 fucking tracks in there, and it's just it's craziness. You guys are real magicians. So let us know what it's all about and how it got started and why you decided to try. Because I do think this is probably the future of music too.
Dude, I think so, man. I've been completely just fascinated by the value for value model and the community that it builds in the podcast world. And I've always had issues with the music industry. So we'll get into that. But first of all, the name of the band is $50 Dynasty. Ty and I have been playing since high school together. So we graduated in 2000. So we've been playing together for 22 years plus. And we've been through a number of bands. Ty's been in a lot more bands than I have, but, side projects and all of the above. But we always wrote music together. Whether or not we were playing in cover bands and whatever we were doing, we were always sharing the music that we wrote with each other, whether it was lyrics or combining riffs together. And we eventually formed $50 Dynasty. I don't remember the exact year. It was like 2007, perhaps. And eventually ended up with the four members: Chris Byman, who's not here, Archer Finley, Tyrell, Rolling Stone, and myself. And we've gone on and off. We've played tons of shows. We've been very active, and then we've kind of like taken breaks and chilled out and kind of did our own thing. And it was one of those sort of off seasons that started this album. Ty and I had a bunch of material that we were kind of wanting to dig out of the weeds and start working on, and we did. And we were just working on it on the weekends, man, because we all have jobs, and but the music is a passion for us too. So it kind of like, I guess for me personally, I was going after a music industry career ever since high school. But at a certain point, I just, I kind of changed my whole drive, and it went from driving to try to succeed in the music industry as it is to focusing just more on the art. And like, I don't really care. I mean, obviously it would be amazing if, the album went viral, right? Like that's a dream come true. But the goal of creating the album and creating the music and working on the music, and I believe this is also true for Ty, was to make it the best art we could make. We had no forces acting on us to try to get it done in a certain matter of time. We did have jobs, like I said before, and lives outside of the music. So it did take a long time because we were mostly doing this on the weekends, the writing process. And yeah, man, it just kept growing into something bigger. And eventually we got Archer and Chris Byman, the bassist and the drummer. Once we kind of had the full idea of the album put together, they stepped in, and that's when we started the final recording process with all of the best equipment we could get our hands on in the best rooms that we could find in the area. And yeah, I really just am very happy with the product, and I'm very proud of this work of art. So that's my perspective on it. What about you, Ty?
I agree. Yeah, it's tough.
That's amazing. He agrees with me.
No, when you're trying to do so many things, and everyone's got all kinds of things going on, busy with your lives and families and all that. It's tough. It's tough to make this whole music thing happen. So I think when we started out, we kind of wanted to be huge rock stars, I think. And really, when this album came around, we're just like, screw it. We're just going to just write an album exactly how we feel it should be. We just don't care about making singles or anything like that. It's just sometimes the song goes on a lot longer than radio would like, and that's what we're all about with this album. It's just like how we feel it. It's all organic and pretty natural. The way every song starts and ends, so it's pretty special. And then Kyle was probably talking about the theme of the album. I think it really is probably one of the most important things. I think, especially for you coming from your podcast background, Brothers and Serpent and Cosmographia.
Yeah, so we've been, my brother and I have been digging into ancient mysteries and all this stuff. And the name of the album is Precession. I'm fascinated by this phenomenon. It's the precession of the equinoxes, which is an astronomical phenomenon. It's interesting in and of itself, but the thing that's more fascinating about it is that ancient texts seem to be pointing at it in so many different cultures throughout the ancient past. The precessional numbers show up in these texts, and so precession has always been fascinating to me because of that. Like, why was it so important to them? But then at the same time, when you're reading the myths, they are also telling beautiful love stories or stories about war, horrific stories in some cases, destruction of the world stories, apocalyptic stories. So all these different types of stories are in there, but embedded in those stories is this esoteric knowledge about some real phenomenon, and perhaps more other real phenomena that maybe we still can uncover in the future. But this has, I think, fascinated all of us. Archer, the same thing. I mean, we've been fascinated with artifacts and stuff ever since we've been hanging out.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and digging into more and more interesting and mind-blowing artifacts from the ancient past, suggesting that there could have been people before that that we have completely forgotten about, and yet their abilities and their technology, or their level of technology, has been preserved in some ways just by the numbers that show up in these ancient texts. Like, how did they find out this incredibly subtle phenomenon? So it's just fascinating to me. And so it was like a theme of the album in a way is like, it's almost mourning a little bit the loss of this possible, the people, the stories that these people had. But it's also trying to tell love stories in some cases, while also embedding ideas about astronomy and the motions of the constellations through the heavens, telling stories to us. So it's trying to incorporate a lot of what I just love about the ancient mysteries. And so that's, for me personally, in a lyrical sense. See, Ty he's totally on board with this too. Like, these lyrics start coming out in certain songs, and it's like, man, this is what this is about. And then he would bring another piece of work that he was working on, some music, to me, and be like, dude, we need to talk about like some crazy Snake Bros shit in this song. Yeah. And
I love the way you guys weave those lyrics in and out of here, and the ancient. Like, I totally noticed the myths and how cool. you weaved it in and out of there. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I really liked it.
Oh, awesome. Did you listen to it, bro?
Yeah.
All right.
I think my favorite song, is maybe Solace, maybe.
Yeah, Solace.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
I don't know. They're all pretty cool, but I mean, there was a couple that really resonated with me.
That's cool. Yeah,
okay,
that's a good one. I've gotten that reaction a lot. I think it's an easy song to get into. Personally, for me, I just think it's catchy. I love that song. And it kind of stands out a little bit too.
Yeah. What's your favorite? What's each of your favorite songs on the album? You go first, Archer, because you didn't say much yet.
Yeah, I'd have to say mine is Where the Stories Lie.
Yeah,
thing. Just because it's got that creepy kind of mystical feel to it. I just love the rhythm of it and the feel, the tone of the song itself. Just kind of creepy and fascinating in a certain way. I don't know.
Yeah, man. That's also been my favorite. I was gonna say that mine have changed. You know, which one is my favorite? I've had different favorites. Another one of my favorites is Epoch, which is
I think that's my favorite.
Yeah, like that one is really cool. It's also got this sort of eerie sense to it. There's a lot of that mood on the album. Because it is eerie, you know, that we are somewhat alone and seeming to be alone in such a vast universe.
Lots of reverb and delay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite one,
It's definitely
Ty?
made for people that enjoy space broccoli.
I'm high right now.
My favorite, Epoch or Mortality, Eternum. I don't know. This is War, Deos. I just kind of float between those, the times.
All the songs he
All
wrote.
the songs, yeah, I was gonna say, all the songs that he had the most writing involvement.
But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, no. It's. I think it's great. You know what I think was so great about this album, though, really, is the fact that we have a theme to it. Where so many songs that you hear on the radio and like new albums, it's just there's no direction. There's just bullshit. There's no ideas and themes, and I think it's so great. And that's why we were like with our first albums. That's what we were doing. We were just taking our best songs that we could write and just put them on a record, and there was just no theme and no direction to it. And this is the first album where we're like, we handpicked these, and we had, like 24 songs to choose from, even more than that, I think, probably, Kyle. I mean, we had like 32.
I don't know. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
But most of them didn't cut the mustard, guys, and we needed to keep it at 12. It had to be 12 songs, right?
So we were very, very selective, though, right? And we wanted like everything to flow right and just all be interwoven together, and that's what I think that's really special about it. Because right now, I mean, everyone's writing about getting drunk at the bar and like breaking up with their girlfriend, and like I don't know. But no one cares about like no one looks up anymore, man. So
who's your favorite band? Like, cool. What if you had to pick, like, not your favorite, but say, give me a couple of your top influences.
Like, who inspires you guys for your genre? You know.
Well, shit, Kyle he doesn't even listen to music.
I was gonna say Steely Dan.
Steely Dan.
I love Steely Dan.
But it's not even close to Steely Dan.
Not close. But also, I think Pink Floyd, some of the ways that they captured. I mean, I listened after getting into this type of esoteric stuff. I've listened to some Pink Floyd songs, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, I think I know what he's talking about here.
Well, like we covered Time.
Yeah,
Remember?
Time, dude.
And,
that is an awesome song. I think the whole thing is like an allegory, but. That's just me. I love that style.
Yeah.
What about you, Ty? I know you got some big influences.
Well, you know me, man. I started out as a '90s kid, with all the '90s grunge bands, and then really came out just Radiohead, really, and I just was really into them, and especially when Kyle showed me OK Computer, and I was like, oh shit, and then Kid A just blew my mind, and Muzak, and then Held It. So I got really into that band, and we started a tribute band, Radiohead tribute band at one time. So that was a huge influence to me. Johnny Greenwood is so good. But there's so much, like
any Alice in Chains influence.
I'm big time influenced by Alice in Chains. The vocals are influenced by Alice in Chains, absolutely. Also, Chris Cornell. I was a huge fan of Chris Cornell.
Euphoria Morning, Jeff Buckley for sure, though, man.
And Stone Temple Pilots, man, they were a big influence on me too. But this album is just different.
The Beatles.
It's
what
genre.
What is it? Like, what genre is it? What would you say?
Oh shit, I don't know.
Because you guys got a little creative on the instruments too, right?
Yeah, we brought in strings. We've got horns in there. Archer sometimes plays the double bass with the bow.
Yeah. Maybe it's meteoric rock. I don't know.
Catastrophic rock.
Catastrophic rock.
Esoteric rock.
Yeah.
So there's there's organs, there's electric piano, there's grand piano.
Did you bring in any outside musicians, or do you guys play all of that stuff amongst yourselves?
We did bring in string players for sure, but the rest of us covered pretty much everything.
So what's a string, like a harp or something?
The violin, the cello.
I have a
viola.
I can't play it at all. No,
okay.
Not at all. I have a banjo that I can't play too.
You're out of the band.
Oh wait, if I learn, I could be. Wait. If I learn, I can play in the band.
Hell yeah!
All right, I will.
You gotta pass the test.
I'm gonna start to practice.
We're gonna annoy everybody on your street.
They're pretty sick of me already. Between the dead animals and the two strokes.
Dude, the violin is one of the hardest instruments to learn to play. I worked on it for a long time. It's really tough.
It's fucking retarded.
I'm no good.
Why not just put a fret there? I mean, I don't. I just don't get why you wouldn't just put a fret there.
We've got it easy over here with the guitars.
Yeah, I kind of got into a lot of Hans Zimmer and some of the soundtracks and stuff like that, and that kind of got thrown in there. And then there's one little organ part that I stole from Typo Negative.
Oh,
that got turned
Mellotron.
out.
The Ultron.
Ty would put the Mellotron, which is this like sort of combination keyboard string synthesizer thing that sounds super fake.
Synthesizer.
It's a synthesizer. He'd put it in every song. I would leave the studio.
Well, we gotta try it out.
Oh, it's like the new band with the auto tune. It's like a new
synth pop is coming back. I mean, for sure.
I'd come in the studio after we'd had a weekend working on it, and I wouldn't know, and I'd like go to play the song, and there's just like sounding like Typo Negative. I was like, what the hell? So it was this giant battle of like me turning down and muting the Mellotron and then coming back later, and Ty had cranked it up and unmuted it. And
what about a theremin? Did you ever use a theremin?
We did not use the theremin, and I'm going to blame that on the bassist.
Whoa.
What?
We're going to blame that on Archer Finley.
That instrument is completely uncontrollable. It's all over the map.
Uncontrollable.
Hey, listen.
It's not predictable, man.
You're a bassist and you're an electrical engineer. We demand a theremin.
Your demand is rejected. Unless you want to play it yourself. Right?
Yeah, I'm playing it.
All right, then go for it.
So this is another possible into the band.
I can't believe you haven't built us a theremin, Gene.
Hey, I'm already playing the biggest fretless instrument you can get. So
you let us down.
Well, the next album can be themed on like high strangeness or something.
There you go.
I mean, yeah, he did play the double bass. Good job. But the theremin is uncontrollable, and like it's
is it a rookie
it's a
move?
gimmicky for me.
Rookie move.
Everyone just wants to see someone play the theremin live just to see if they can actually hit a note in tune.
What about
probably the hardest thing to
Archer,
do with the theremin?
You know what you could do? See, what G-May could do is he could design a 3-dimensional CNC machine that we could program the notes into it, and it would play the theremin.
You could do that?
We could do that. Yeah.
You can do that. Well, Archer can do that.
Could you program me a little podcast co-host?
Words are just sound.
Hey, Graham is great.
Well,
man.
listen, I've got thousands of hours of this guy talking.
Well, let's get you a man. Just assign, samples to each button. You're good to go.
Take a CNC machine, and why don't you just draw out a big long theremin and then shove it up your ass?
It'd be more likely that Graham could replace me with some clever sayings and jokes. He could just have like 15 Darren buttons. Just 3 of them make fun of him in some way. I can't hear you.
15 most frequent sayings.
Interruptions. I'll just keep interrupting people with.
So here's because I'm gonna. So where is the album right now? It's not on Spotify yet, right?
Yes, that's right. Okay, so we are releasing it on the solstice, which is the 21st of June.
Will you be home yet? Will you just be randomly in the middle of the country when your album comes out?
That's right. I'm going to be randomly in the middle of the country, hopefully on the way to Serpent Mound, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. But we had to release it. I personally wanted it to be released officially on either a solstice or an equinox. I would have preferred the spring equinox, but you can't win everything. But it is available right now. There's a special access pre-release on our Patreon page. So it's $50dynasty.com/Patreon or patreon.com/$50dynasty.
We'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, and
that
then
gives you a podcast feed with it, right?
That's right. There's an RSS feed. Now, those are high resolution audio files, so they're very big. They don't stream well, so you can download them. I will be putting MP3 versions up available, and I've also written some things about each song in the Patreon feed, and we're going to keep the feed going. Right now, it's $12 a month, which is not going to stay that way, but there was only one tier, and it's basically like if you want the album early release, you can pay $12 for it, right? And then we're going to make lower tiers on the 21st where people can do the value for value and pay what they can afford and want if they want to support the band. We'll also have a PayPal and Bitcoin wallets and whatever else we can come up with and make it people can donate in whatever way they want.
Gas cans.
Honestly, the gas is worth more than the Bitcoin these days.
Yeah,
gas and bullets, please.
Yeah. If you want to dump your Bitcoin, we'll have a wallet for it. So yeah, we are trying to do the value for value model, and it will be available in high resolution. We recorded these tracks at a much higher sampling rate and quality than is standard in the industry right now. So, and it is totally obvious when you listen to really high quality, high resolution audio files versus the compressed versions that people typically get, or if you're sending it over Bluetooth, it's compressed. So the album has a lot of depth. We used a lot of analog gear, many hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of high-end analog gear went into creating this album. We will be producing vinyl as well.
180 grand.
180 gram vinyl is going to be a double vinyl album.
Could I have one? I seen a neat thing where I don't have a record player. I'm going to melt it into a cool collectible dish for my desk.
Okay. Yeah.
Just full disclosure. So that's still pretty cool, right? I think that's still pretty cool.
Cool.
So you guys got a sponsor. I mean, I'm suggesting if you don't, maybe I'll do it or someone should. I think get this onto the No Agenda show because they're the biggest value for value community in the world. And as far as I know, this is the first value for value album release ever.
Yeah. And so now you have to understand that physical copies are not going to be given away for free.
What?
We're not making CDs and records to give away. Those are extremely expensive.
Just digitally.
Yes. The music itself, in other words, the digital versions are all going to be free. If you choose to go to Amazon or Apple iTunes, you will have to buy it there. But we couldn't set the price at $0. You can't do it. It's weird.
They won't let you do
That's because they need their 30%.
They make a percentage. So don't go there and don't buy it from there. If
they
you want to
make a percentage off of $0.
Yeah, if you want to pay $12 for the album, just drop us $12 in our website. We'll have a donate button there at $50dynasty.com and just download the album from the website. So
will it be available on Spotify too? So people can just they could just listen to it anyway. Absolutely. On Spotify and give you the $12.
That's right.
So
we want people to use it like YouTubers, if you want to use it in your videos and stuff like that.
That's right.
Can we use it so we can put it?
Well, that was my my thing. I want to
absolutely 100%.
I'll play if you guys are fine with it. I'll the next few shows we'll play all the favorite songs you guys mentioned here. We'll start with what was it, Epoch, right?
Is there a reason to go from 1 to 12 on this? Should it go I
number 1?
listened to it from 1 to 12 just in case there was some sort of linear progression.
There is a linear progression. Okay. There is a linear progression. It's complicated to explain, but it was the best arrangement that we could come up with that kind of I don't know if this would mean anything to you, but somewhat like the Path of the Fool.
Well, we'll do 12. That means a lot to me. I mean, I'm part fool myself, and I know a bunch of them.
We all are.
And yeah, we'll do the whole thing, the next 12 episodes.
Awesome, man. That'd be really killer. And so man. Just to finish the thought, we also did instrumental mixes for each song, so no lyrics, and we had those mastered as well. So they will be eventually released as well, and I especially want to give content creators some early access to the instrumental versions so that they can use them as video beds, music beds for video, stuff like that. I've already given Ben some stuff from Uncharted X, and he made like a kick-ass little segment on the end of his latest video with one of the songs from the album in there, and I was just like, holy crap, this is awesome. Nice. So yeah, I want content creators to use it, because if they use it and then they say, hey, I got this music from $50 Dynasty, that just spreads the music more, and that's what we want. We want people to hear it. We want it to spread around, and if people want to support, they can. That's great. And we already have people supporting, and it's been amazing. So,
what a concept!
What a concept!
And I have to mention before we go, if I don't know how long we have, but I do have to mention, I want a big thank you to a man named Clay Jones, who is the executive producer of the album, and he is like the biggest value for value contributor so far, and he made it happen for us.
Yeah, we love you, Clay.
Right on.
So if people want to hear it live, come to the Eclipse 2024.
Can we say that yet, or we're figuring that out?
We'll get it going. Look,
Darren, the mastermind, and Ty are working on possibly throwing some kind of festival down here in Texas, and we're figuring it out. And maybe it's going to happen, and we're going to try to make it happen. It's
going to take a minute. We have creative differences, but we'll figure it out.
Well, no. We just got to get your ass out of Canada.
I can go now. I have fake papers. I mean, real papers.
Cut that part out.
Nah, I don't give a fuck. Prove it. I went such a route that they would have a hell of a time proving this one is fake.
Because it's not fake.
I hired a sponge. And it was in mask time, so nobody knows. Yeah, I'm Darren Grimes. Or I'm some dude that Darren Grimes gave $250 to. Shit got real up in Canada, man. I'm not sorry.
I know, man. I know.
It's still getting real. What are you talking about? We're taking your guns away.
Like fuck they are from my cold dead fucking hands. That's what the neighbors are probably betting on. I wonder how long until the SWAT team's over there.
You should get in on that bet.
I just shot a moose.
It's like an insurance policy, so if you lose, you gain something.
I just shot a moose a couple weeks ago. I'm gonna turn it into sausage.
Hell yeah.
Darren's been hunting it up, man. I'm kind of jealous of your hunting trips, bro.
You should get yourself some fake papers and come here. I don't even know how the fuck you hunt.
Moose, huh?
I don't know how you hunt in Texas when it's 100 fucking degrees all the time.
You don't. There's no hunting season in summer.
It seems crazy, right? But it's even hot in winter. It's even hot in winter.
You fish.
It's too hot to fish.
From my Canadian mind,
well, you fish beers out of the cooler.
I see no time in Texas where it's cold enough to process an animal. I mean, I see the way the bros have it set up because the thing's like 6 minutes from their fucking cooler.
Yeah, we got a cooler.
But if you're out in the outback, you got to have a solution for that. I guess.
Here really, if you had to do it, in a survival scenario here, your best bet is somehow
dry it,
drying it out and salting it is really the only way to go. But obviously, we're lucky to have a walk-in cooler. And we don't call it hunting, Darren. We call it harvesting.
Your setup is a total harvest. It's
a harvest. Absolutely 100%. It's not hunting.
That's illegal in Canada. So
yeah. It was illegal in the state of Georgia when I was growing up as well.
Yeah.
But here we can feed them. We can feed them protein, and it's even we can do this wildlife management,
Graham,
which is like
it literally like Kyle has a permanent hunting blind about 15 or 20 steps from his door that points at a feeder that's timed to drop a bit of food out every day at a certain time.
Twice a day.
Twice a day.
Nice day.
So
also,
hunting season is like 15 minutes.
The other thing, though, is that we're not killing trophies here. We kill cull bucks, we kill doe, and we kill spikes. And the idea is to cull the herd.
Keep it going.
And now, like, we've been here for 20 years, and now we have beautiful bucks and all this. When we got here, because there's a lot of hunters, and they just come for the trophies, and so you get, shit genes. So we've been culling the herd for 20 years in our subdivision, and we've got a nice, bunch of deer now. But we take it straight up to the walk-in cooler and hang it for 5 to 7 days in there and let it cure, and then we process it ourselves.
That's the secret.
It's wonderful
That's
meat.
the secret.
Love it so much.
I just bought a new meat grinder. I got the Lex half horsepower, the big bite. I can't wait to fucking use it.
Oh, that's gonna be good.
Anyway, huge thanks to you guys for coming on. And
thanks for having us, man.
I can't wait to hear the album in person the night before the next total solar eclipse. Is this an eclipse album? Maybe. I mean, it seems like it would fit.
It's the eclipse of an ancient civilization, perhaps,
and the dawn of a new one.
That's right.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much for having us, and thanks to all of you contributors to the Value for Value model out there. We really appreciate everything you do.
We couldn't do it without you.
That's right.
I can put a link to your brothersoftheserpent.com Patreon, and that's how people can get it.
The album would be we've set up one for the band, so it's patreon.com/$50 Dynasty.
Okay.
And we also have Brothers of the Serpent. If you
can support that too, and support the Grimerican show. I mean, just support it all. Pull out your wallet. Pull out your wallet, motherfuckers. Support. All right, guys. Thanks.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys. Whitney Fox, welcome to Grimerica. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. This will be a blast. And learning a little bit about what you've been up to and stuff. And it's fascinating. Fascinating stuff. Got a lot of questions already. But I mean, I don't know how you been. Let's just start off super casually.
I've been like everybody else, like oddly good, but also like WTF.
Yeah, I know it's a constant. I find it's like this roller coaster that I'm on, where I'm constantly, flipping back and forth between completely disappointed with fellow humanity and completely fascinated with what's happening. Like really trying to consciously kind of shift over to a non-negative state of mind.
Yep, it takes some conscious effort, does it not?
Yeah, all the time.
I'm also fascinated, so it's hard to put it down, because it's like every second something else crazy happens, and it's so rapid. It's like getting punched in the face, but like wanting more. Not wanting more, wanting to figure it out.
Well, you must be in a unique situation being in. Are you still in California?
Yes,
California as an artist, right? Mm-hmm. And a medium, and I mean, I find that no matter what kind of group or community or genre we're talking about, everything's been split down the middle another way. You know, it's just another way we've been sort of split recently.
Absolutely. 100%. Although I've seen like a tide change just recently too, like in maybe even the last couple of weeks, like people that I've thought were super normie, or even like, I'm not trying to politicize anything, but even super liberal, you know, like because of Los Angeles, right? Then all of a sudden there's things coming out of people's mouth. I'm like, oh, wow. You know, like, so,
what do you think it is? What do you think's causing it?
You know, I think, well, if you want to talk like crazy deep state stuff, I just think they've overplayed their hand.
Yes. Yeah.
And people like you and I saw the overplaying of the hand. I mean, my deep question is why? Why this overplaying of the hand? Like,
I have an answer to that. I don't have an answer. I have a theory that they need. Okay. They're trying to wake us up. There's not enough people. There's not enough people to fight back, to push back. I mean,
right.
I feel like they want, you know, hey, come on, like we're dividing you, like fight amongst each other, fight amongst us. Like there's no pushback really.
Like inciting a riot, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. And I don't know what that would look like, or I mean, I'm just, there's so much overt leakage now and lying, and you're like, how can this be real? Like, how can they not know that they're just like poking at us? Like, wake up, wake up, wake up. Like,
you know, I said this to somebody the other day, like back ages ago. I remember there was like ages ago, Kissinger had said something like, nothing happens unless we plan it that way. I remember that sinking in a long time ago.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Like
and
when?
so,
like 90s? Like
maybe even earlier than that. You know, like it made the conspiracy rounds and stuff like that. And so all this like leakage that you say, like, makes me just kind of think like, you know, like Pelosi's husband, like we would have never heard about that ever. So what's the agenda there? What's saddle? And now they let him off. He's going to get off without, you know, he crashed his Porsche and the whole, you know, like, not that I even really try and care about popular culture. What I care about, things like McConaughey coming out and his big speech and like the Johnny Depp and then the slap heard around the world. I'm like, this is all so scripted. How does anybody not see the script? It's just, what's the angle? It's just so fast. Every week it's something else. Yeah. So, you know, I'm super suspicious. If they let us hear it, it's for a reason. Or
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I would say if they let us hear it after a day. I've heard of, I gotta research this more, but I heard of something called crowd tangle. I think it was crowd tangle maybe. And it was a program they use to catch viral stuff. So I kind of thought there's probably some legit virality at the beginning of things, but then if they let it go on for more than 12 hours or 24 hours or whatever, then I would say they're allowing it. You know?
They got to get a story on it or get an angle,
or just shut it down. Yeah, or just shut the algorithms down or whatever. But
I don't know if you heard about the Osprey plane crash just a couple hours south of me that went down, and supposedly first thing on the just happened. Out near a town called Glamis, which it caught my attention because my son goes out dirt bike riding out down there sometimes, or did. And it's really, it's just like a bunch of sand. It's a giant place to go dirt bike riding. It's almost to the Mexico border, but I guess an Osprey went down. And the first report was that there was 5 killed, military, and that there was nuclear material on board. And so that's kind of still the story, except that only 4 killed and 1 missing. So I'm like, how are they going to spin this? How's this story going to change? You know, I send it to my son because he knows the area, and he's like, what the, you know what? So, well, you know, it might be his red pill moment, you know, to just be like, okay, we watch this. So who knows where that's going to go?
So are you sort of subtly predicting, like, you know, a lone kind of nuclear gunman somewhere, you know, holding people hostage with a nuke that was escaped from the Osprey? Or,
you know, it was a military aircraft, and I don't know what I'm predicting. but I'm predicting that we're not going to get the same story.
Exactly. Yeah.
Somehow it'll be spun in some other direction, or it'll be just totally shut down. No, there was no nuclear material aboard.
Yeah. How long have you been sort of interested in all this kind of stuff? Because I was thinking back to, sometimes I think back to like, when was I, like I had a sighting in 1990, and I remember that of course changed everything, but then I got into the corporate world and stuff, and but I always still had sort of like, I guess, conspiracy, as the best way to describe it, but alternative views, maybe that kind of stuff. Still, I had it in the mid 90s and late 90s and early 2000s. And then I think, we started the show at 2013, like there wasn't really too many big gaps when I think back to my kind of, following all this stuff.
If you're anything like me, and I suspect that you are, I think my sighting was in 1990 as well, coincidentally, if there's such a thing. It was previous to that. I was already aware a lot about how our culture just gaslights us constantly on especially any sort of esoteric, paranormal, out of the norm topics. I think there's this, obviously a lot of people are waking up to that, but you're probably like me, where I've got these like two different hats I wear. I've got this really grounded material life where I run my business, and, I've got my family and the house and the whole, like social life. Most of those people in my social life, I don't talk about this stuff too, and I think that's probably true for a lot of this community and your listeners and stuff. If you've got your tinfoil hat crowd, right? And, way before Sam started doing that, that's what I called it, so.
Yeah.
Like
I've gone the opposite way. I used to have many circles, but now it's just one. Now I'm just kind of in my physical life, like it's just me, the work, this job, this everything, the people I talk to. It's mostly just this one hat now.
Yeah.
It really is.
You've made it work. I mean, you've done.
Yeah, I guess I've made it work. And my family, like whoever in my personal life, I just talked about all this stuff anyways, constantly. So
yeah, it is the role that you've got now, but maybe there was a point where it was sort of like,
there was a total point. Yeah. I mean, I had too many hats at one point. And I came through addiction and recovery and all that too. And I remember you were talking to, you had a podcast, and I'll mention the name of the podcast later. I don't have it in front of me right now, but you were talking about entities and addiction, and sort of like the old, and I think speaking of the 90s and the early 2000s, like the after hours clubs and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I was probably, taken by something like that,
parasite, right?
Parasites or something. I don't know how I got rid of it. I mean, it was a spiritual solution, that's for sure. But, I didn't have like a time where the parasite left me knowingly. I just know that I kind of healed from that, or I'm still always healing. I'm always healing from it. But
and maybe, I don't think you're alone. I mean, I went to some drastic measures. I didn't even know I had it either. I didn't feel that I was suffering from any addiction or anything like that. However, I still had random bouts of depression that were unexplainable. And also like someone, it's a story we could get into. So, with that said though, like back to my earlier comment, like there's kind of a couple of hats I wear. One that's like super grounded in the material, and, my kids are older now, but I was like the soccer baseball mom, like there's no way I'm bringing that shit up around. Like, however, there are random people in my life, and then also like this podcast community and all of the things that I've been drawn to listen to or read for a lifetime. That's where my interest has always been. So there's like this sort of bifurcated personality, and I don't really bring it up with a lot of people unless they bring it up first.
But you've also been a runner too, right? And so obviously, your kids are into sports, and I came from a sporty background too, which is interesting, but
yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I was always very athletic. I'm getting older now, and I've screwed up my feet, screwed up my shoulders, screwed up my elbows, like too sporty, but I still, whatever. If I can get a surgery, I'm getting it, So, so you'd kind of asked like what, when I first sort of got into maybe what you'd call conspiracy maybe I like to call it critical thinking, I want to say sort of always, because having had, several paranormal experiences and, out of body experiences and lucid dreams and what I thought were past life dreams, so many unexplainable things in my life where when I looked around into like, popular culture, I was for sure an outsider. And so I have always known what I've seen and experienced. I know no one's going to tell me any different. There's not going to be, I'm not hearing it. I've seen it with my own my own three eyes from really young,
Like what was it like? What was your first like remembrance of an experience? Like, was it OBE or lucid dream when you were young or?
Like very, very first was not uncommon. Invisible childhood friends, imaginary friends that I was, I mean, in a lot of ways, I still remember them. So, and, that was sort of, even though my parents did the best they could and they'd both had very open minds, it's sort of like, it's not the kind of thing you want to say at school, like you might want to, but, and then also they would get a little freaked out about when I would talk about them. So that's my earliest memory. Not that there was anything ever scary. I just thought that everybody had that. And my brother also had an imaginary friend. He was much older than me, but in later years, we discussed how he had, and I think there might be some familial stuff. I think my grandmother had a very powerful UFO encounter. My mother had some very anomalous experiences, through her life. So, and then my middle daughter has had some encounters as well. So I think there might be, I've obviously had a long time to think about this and sort of research it and consider it. And, so I think there's there's a grand unified theory of all of these things and their connection to each other. And then each of us that have had experiences, and even those of us that have had experiences but don't want to admit it, I think there's this thread that connects it all. So I feel like I've had mostly everything except a Bigfoot sighting. So, which, I ain't dead yet. So maybe one day. However, if I were to see something like that, if I were to witness Bigfoot, I think I would have a greater understanding of what's going on there. I think it's like energy and consciousness. So, but I didn't always know that. I sort of thought that I began to think that I was an outsider weirdo, except here and there, I would have experiences where I had witnesses with me, and several experiences with witnesses with me. So, and some people are willing to talk about it more than others. You know what I mean? So, everybody's coming at it from their belief system though, too, or their programming or whatever. And I was blessed enough to not necessarily be programmed by my parents at all. Pretty open-minded. My mom had some interesting experiences. And then on the conspiracy tip, when I had some questions, I'm older, I'm 58, right? So, and I had mentioned this recently to somebody about, I remember when they finally released the Zapruder films. And I want to say I was in high school where it was first starting to kind of come around on news programs, stuff like that. And that was when my dad said, if you think Oswald shot Kennedy, I can't remember his exact words, but it was something like, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you kind of thing. And, it's not like he was a big tinfoil hat guy, but he would throw things into conversation that, he was thinking beyond the surface for sure. And then in later life, like he worked for the airlines and he had a lot of pilot friends, and his pilot friends all had, UFO stories and stuff. And And then we had a family poltergeist that we all saw shit with that. I mean, and then he had to just kind of pull me aside when I got to be a little older. And he's like, yeah, so about that.
Wow.
Yeah. Cause he was like World War II and, very, I don't want to say straight laced, but it definitely not, he didn't talk about woo stuff unless it became relevant. And so with poltergeist, we all knew there was no avoiding that situation. So we all just kind of shrugged the adults shrugged their shoulders and were like, you know what, these things happen.
Was there a time when you all saw the same thing together? Like,
yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a couple of times. So this situation was my mother's sister. And then, just a sidebar kind of, my mother was born and raised in Utah, and a lot of weird shit happens in Utah. And there seemed to just be a lot of weird stuff that kind of happened around that family in general. Wouldn't be like a constant thing, wouldn't be like something that you write a novel about, but in hindsight, like they're all gone now. I was the youngest of the youngest and all of that family is gone now. But there was just kind of raised in a family. It was like, oh, this happened. Oh, that happened. And, the two big ones were the poltergeist that, my aunt and uncle had for their entire marriage. They contacted someone, that called himself George with a homemade Ouija board, and George hung around for their entire marriage.
Wow.
Yeah. And then everybody witnessed anomalous experiences. And then it would be her mother, my mother's mother as well. Her and her boyfriend late in life. That my grandmother lived to be 101, and she was probably in her 80s when this happened. And she had a boyfriend, and they were traveling from Milford, Utah. If anybody knows Utah, they were on their way to Las Vegas, I think. And in case you have any listeners that know Utah, I believe it was between Milford and Minersville, and totally small towns, but evidently like 100 witnesses of a craft coming down and someone coming out. And I've Googled it and not been able to find anything. So if you've got any listeners that have any other information, but to hear her tell the story, and she would tell stories about her past, but she wasn't talking this stuff all the time, but she swore by this story. And so did Bert, her and Bert. They had this story. They said, it was such a dramatic experience to see this saucer shaped craft and some sort of stair or ramp or something come out of it. Said that the cars just started lining up, and over 100 people just were on the side of the road watching this experience. So that's all she had about it. Whether it was an abduction, whether it was anything else, who knows? And this would have been much later in her life. And like with that said, it's not like anybody in the family, all of her kids that were still alive, could say she's crazy, because she never talked about stuff like that. And she was of complete sound mind when this happened. However, she was pretty not distraught, but she was kind of passionate about it. So when she'd tell the story, one of her kids might be like, oh, here she goes again. But she needed to get this story out. And so did he. And I remember it distinctly. It was before I had my encounter. But no one could really laugh it off too much because of George. George was whatever George was. We called it a poltergeist, called it a ghost. He always claimed that he was in love with my aunt and that he would never leave her and things like that. And so it was like a third guy in the marriage. But, just to give you a quick couple things about what I witnessed or what we witnessed together was we would go up there every year to go camping and fishing. And, my dad would get like 3 weeks off from work and we would just like go off the grid. And, what we would do is we would meet this aunt and uncle, and then we would go out fishing for like a week, and then we would head back to their house to shower and wash our clothes and things like that. Southern Utah, mostly. This one instance that is very distinct in my mind, because there was kind of always a little something. There'd always be a little bit something weird, even when we were camping. There'd always be something out of place or something bizarre. And then I always knew that either at least they thought it was George, because my aunt would get all kerfluffled. She'd go, oh no, George, and it wasn't really playful for her. She was not a fan, so she was always upset, or not always upset, but it bothered her a great deal because it was so outside. And even though George had been with them for years, he just was not leaving. And, whatever programming, they weren't Mormon, but still weird shit. When something just appears out of nowhere, she would call my mother and I would hear my mother on the phone talking with her, and I could tell that my aunt was upset, and my mother would talk her in off the ledge and, hear the stories, and some of them would get related to me. Some I would just overhear, but I just knew it was a thing. So it was an early thing where it wasn't something I went and told my friends, but it was something that was going on in the family. So, but this on the camping trips, there was one very dramatic one where with a locked car, no one having access to all of the belongings inside, it completely took everything, all clothes, everything that was inside this locked car, and put it up in the pine trees, stuffed it in wheel wells, so it was everywhere. And so, we for sure would try to laugh these things off. And in this situation, it was so dramatic that we didn't want the fear factor to kind of ruin the trip. So the men were kind of like, a squirrel, but we all knew. And especially because my poor aunt practically needed a sedative, So, and then, one of the other trips, I had taken a friend with me, a friend that I had also had an experience at her house with. So maybe that's why it happened to she and I together, because she already had something in her house. And anyway, took her camping with us, and we had the time at my aunt's house, and we were in her basement, and there was a basket, like a woven, completely hideous 1970s black thread basket thing hanging over the TV, with fake birds and stuff, hung from a, like a wicker chain. And it's a little bit of a longer story. I'll give you the brief version, but we were watching TV, and my aunt's dog just came down and started barking at it, just bark, losing its mind over this thing. And suddenly the basket turns on its suspension by about like 90 degrees and then just stops. So it doesn't sound like necessarily a big deal, but it was literally like somebody took their hand and was holding this basket in place. So if you think about, if there's something suspended from a chain and you twist it, it's going to find its balance again. It's going to come back and it's going to go back and forth, and, like a sort of like a pendulum, but it didn't. It just stuck there like someone was holding it, and then for a while. So we're, we know about George and all of that. And so then we hear my aunt's voice upstairs, and it follows her voice. And so for sure, we freaked out. I think I was maybe 13, 14, something like that. We freaked out. And that was essentially maybe the big time or the first time that my dad sat down and was like, okay, dude, we don't know what this is. And there's something else going on. You're perfectly safe. And so me and my friend slept in the trailer that night. We're like, fuck this. We're not staying in this house. But, and a few other things too with George. But so early, those are some of the early things where, when there's other witnesses and your family sees stuff and nobody hurt, nobody was harmed,
but is there like, I mean, geez, we talk about this so much, whether we should be making contact or not, and some of our guests talk about how good and evil really isn't a thing, and all these experiences are kind of subjective. And then you got the people that think that, UFOs and all these encounters and contact end up being positive in the end. But I mean, hearing about a couple of things that happened to you in your psychedelic experiences and your night terrors and stuff. I mean, and then does that George, I mean, who knows, would that George contact be, I mean, could you chalk that up to maybe him being somewhat connected to the family or hanging around, also maybe creating some of these more negative experiences? Or I know you had stuff happen before George, right? But
it's a really good question. And I think I think it's the ongoing question, good and evil. What's our programming?
Yeah.
How far can we go with this without opening a door we can't close? Are you going to get possessed with that kind of thing? Using George as an example, I don't think George was malevolent. I think he just wanted some attention, and he taught the family at large and me a great deal about the continuation of consciousness. So whatever it was and however he was manifesting, he seemed conscious. And, having come through a homemade Ouija board with a name and all of that kind of thing, sure, demonic. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Possibly. Did anybody become possessed, or did anybody become very hurt? Maybe some of their energy was vampirized or something like that. Maybe my aunt's fear, who I really don't know. I didn't live there. Those are the accounts that I can attest to. However, it for sure made me open to learn more about it. And then, I've also had experiences where I think there was someone that in my life who was possessed and was doing very terrible things in his life. And I had witness to that. And so I'm just walking around looking at the world through my eyes and how it's affecting me, not to sound like a narcissist, but, my path of learning and trying to understand this stuff. Ultimately, I think it's about our own personal intent. If we want to learn more and sort of grow and evolve and become, not to overstate it, but become enlightened about things. I feel like if we're too staunch in what we think we believe, then we just stop learning.
Is that how you stopped the night terrors and stuff, through intent, or?
Yes.
Because that's one of the big questions. Like, to me, if like my girlfriend has this issue, and I don't want to get into her side of it too, because every time I talk about it, something happens. Like, so it's happened like 2 or 3 times now. And I mean, I'd love to talk about it because it's interesting to me and probably the listeners. But anyways, how, I mean, she doesn't have free will if she's being attacked by these things, right? In the middle of the night, or how do you, I mean, it just happens, right? No matter whether you want it or not, it just seems to take hold.
I mean, I do think that there are dark energies that are, coming to psychic attack. This sounds like a psychic attack. And what's the motivation of the attacker is the question. So if there's motivation to steal your loosh or to feed off of your adrenaline or your energy field, if we're talking deep consciousness, then, we project an energy field. And if we don't necessarily have our shit straight, if we don't have our power in place, and, that I don't mean that to sound flippant.
No, not at all.
However, if you're down, if she's down, to think about her own personal power and how this might be an exercise in growing that. It is a shift in thinking instead of the victim being, finding this a challenge with which to grow our own personal power. And that's how I've seen it. Although I didn't, I freaked out for a long time until I finally went, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And when I did it, so you had made reference to, like the ayahuasca journeys and the like all of that part of my life. Once I started doing that, it was a non-issue. There was no room for that. It was like I stepped into a different kind of
reality almost, or
yeah, like a different reality almost. However, I needed to beat that thing with my own will. And so with the night terrors that you mentioned, I had night terrors for decades, my whole life, pretty much. And they were somewhat regular, and there were all manners of things. Somehow so the UFO encounter that may or may not have been an abduction, people that hear the story are like, oh yeah, there was something else going on there. I don't really know. All I know is I don't have a negative feeling from that. I don't have negative memories. I don't think of it as a negative encounter. However, with the night terrors, they were at least once a month. Sometimes they'd be weekly. Started when I was very young, probably a child, maybe always, not really sure. It was just sort of like sleep paralysis, that kind of thing. And then I got to a point in those realms, in that dreamscape, where I somehow started to gather up some strength. And I don't know if it was just tired of being bullied, maybe. Maybe it was a personality thing where I finally pushed back. And so what started to end up happening is, with these night terrors for years, is like my ex-husband, he got really good at holding me down and then like talking me back into like consciousness. Because sometimes I'd run out of the room, I'd try and run out of the house, I'd start swinging, like lots of stuff. And some of these night terrors had characters or settings, and some were just abject terror. I was just in terror. So it's those just in terror ones that I started to sense that something was feeding on that. Like it was just imparting this abject terror so that something could just take all my energy, because I'd be knackered the next day, just wiped out. Having brought up my ex-husband, there was one experience, because he was super normie guy. And even though he was good at like, reining in the terror when he could. But there was one in particular where I was heating up, and some of the times it'd be lucid. I'd know that I was having a night terror. Kind of hard to describe unless you've kind of had one. But in this one, there was imagery, and there was these green lights around our bed. And then as I came out of it, he admitted he saw them too. So when he did that, I think there was a little bit of a shift in for sure my thinking, but even his thinking a little bit. And what I noticed with normies, is like, even if they see a little something, they don't necessarily have the bandwidth. And I do the same. Sometimes I don't have the bandwidth to deal with it either. And I'll just go totally like, I got to like just focus on.
Sometimes it takes years. I mean, years.
It does. Yeah. It totally. And even now, sometimes it's like more than I can think about. I'm like, I'm going to go water the garden. I don't want to I gotta, whatever, I could do something super grounded, So anyway, at one point, but we had moved to a house that I feel like I have some stories from that house. My kids were pretty young, and it was a family house of my ex-husband's, and there was some stuff there. Got some stories there. My kids saw stuff, and I for sure had some experiences and stuff there. But I had already been working on, like I had read the Monroe books and stuff, and I was already working on some OBEs and stuff. And I'd already had lucid dreams, and even previous to moving there, I had already had a couple of OBEs, and then it had some, it was kind of it's not like a everyday paranormal life, but it'd be like, that's where my interest has always lied. So it'd be like maybe every couple of months, or maybe every 6 months, or so there was always kind of a little something where I'd be like, that happened. So anyway, in that house, it came, the night terrors were fairly regular, so much that, my kids knew, and obviously my husband knew and stuff. And we'd get invited to go away on weekend trips with people and be like, yeah, I don't want to ruin the party if I go screaming out the front door or something. But anyway, there was one that I was pretty lucid, but out of my mouth, I said, in the name of Jesus Christ, be gone. And it was like a higher self saying that, because it's not that I've necessarily had, I wasn't raised Christian. I've never had a problem with Jesus. I've never had a problem. I was not, it was like, he's cool. But when that came out of my mouth and had instant alleviation of that, then in the night terrors moving forward, I always did it. And then it started to like go away or get weaker.
Wear off? Yeah. Did it start to wear off?
Wear off. And so that was like, I didn't have the help of, like plant medicines and stuff like that, which I'm glad. It was a sheer will. And it was something that I learned in that space somehow, possibly. I don't know if I was guided. I've had subsequent, Jesus type stuff that I can't explain. I don't have.
Well, you saw him once in a psychedelic experience. Right?
I did. I had a powerful experience with him. And then, little stuff too, like just very, those experiences, like anybody that's had any sort of paranormal experience, it might sound small, but in the moment, it's very significant. Those are like spiritual moments, right? And I was working in a church in Santa Monica. I was doing some like faux finish for them in this giant church, I think it was Santa Monica Presbyterian or something. And they had this massive cross on the wall, and I was in there by myself. And the work I was doing was on the floor. So I'm down there with knee pads and the whole thing, this giant church all by myself, like nobody else. And I kept looking up at the crucifix on the wall. It had to be like 12 feet high. It was beautiful. It was just wood. But anyway, I just kept kind of like feeling like someone was like in there with me. Anyway, I was doing some work between these pews, and all of a sudden I heard, look at the clock. And so it's not like I hear voices all the time, but so I look at the clock and it was a digital and it said 3:16. And I was like, wow, that sounds kind of familiar, And so then I'm pretty sure it's John 3:16, which is like, God so loved the earth that he sent his only begotten son. And I didn't know this at the time. If I did, it was deep in my subconscious. I was not a Bible reader. So I picked up the Bible and then I opened it and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. Like what just happened there? So there's probably Christians out there going, bitch, that happens every day when you're a Christian. But like, I didn't necessarily know these things, and like I say, like, I'm not a practicing Christian. There's a church that I like to go to just because it's vibration raising and stuff. And I think Jesus is totally cool, and feel like he visited me in an ayahuasca experience and taught me some stuff, so I'm not a fan of dogma, so anyway, and whatever that energy really is, that benevolent spirit of love, I stopped having the night terrors. I feel like whatever that psychic attack was like, we're not getting any play here anymore. This is boring. Let's go.
Do you think your work on the OBEs and the lucidity part played I feel like that plays a huge part in you just building some awareness in that moment, or some space to respond instead of being just frozen in fear.
Absolutely. For sure. And also the drive to understand consciousness whatever it is, your aunt's poltergeist, your night terrors, your your synchronicities and deja vus and stuff. I've always just been like, what is this? What is actually going on here? It's not what we're being told. It's not, your 9 to 5 and what kind of car you drive. I've just always known it. And then also, because I can go down any conspiratorial path you want to go, because I'm down, because they're lying to us about everything. Like everything is like, actor's going to act, like, come on, Johnny Depp.
What about OBE experiences? Do you have any experiences in that realm and the other realm, like that you can, it's not a dream, but listeners are kind of craving for some OBE stuff. So.
Okay, for sure. So it's not like I have them all the time. I haven't even worked on it in years necessarily. And I don't know why. I feel like I worked on it, was super driven to that. And then, I think we're all kind of that way. We've got an interest and then we just dive in, and that's the thing. And then, it sort of at the same time I was working on lucid dreams. So they kind of overlapped, something I came across, whatever. So, I feel like I read the first Monroe book years and years ago, and then maybe tried it a little bit. And I was like, that's hard. I can't, or whatever. But then I got back into it. And then I read a couple of them. And then I heard somebody interviewed, maybe like Coast to Coast or something. And I'm like, damn it, I'm doing that. I'm trying that. So I worked on it, like set alarm in the middle of the night. And then, I had younger kids. So there was always somebody waking me up. So I had plenty of opportunities in the middle of the night to put some of the protocols into practice, because there's several different ways, different things you can do. This one time that I'm going to talk about, I think the exercise was to set an alarm in the middle of the night so that you wake up and you're still tired, your body's still tired, but then your mind's alert. And so part of the exercise was to, lay in bed, but have a hand raised up, like above you. And then as you feel your hands start to fall, then, your body is falling asleep, but to try and keep your mind aware. And that's exactly, it worked. I felt my body fall asleep. I was aware of my hand falling down and hitting the bed, but I was alert in my mind. And so I thought, okay, my body's asleep. I could hear myself breathing like I was sleeping. And I had some like baby experiences. Like I would wake myself up because I got too excited, or to, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm doing it. And then I'd wake up. But in this case, I had a little bit of practice. And so I was like, no, I'm going to stay in this state. And so, this experience was the first big one. Like I said, those little ones. This one. So I knew that I was conscious and my body was asleep. So next, I didn't make any plans though. I didn't think, okay, once I'm out of the body, I'm going to go fly. I'm going to go visit somebody. I didn't make any plans, which was, I ended up with some OBEs later having a plan, so this one, I moved over to the window and I looked back and I saw me sleeping in the bed, and also very proud of myself for not getting jerked awake because of that sensation. But I went through the window and I sat on the window ledge like a bird for a bit, and then I left. And so I went out, and the conscious awareness for me was more than a dream. A dream is like sort of amorphous. This was real. I was real. I could see like the dew on the street and all of that kind of thing. And for whatever reason, I just went with it. And I knew that I wasn't alone. I knew that I had a companion. I didn't see the companion, but I knew that I had a guide. And so I traveled, oddly, like to the east of where I was living at the time was this Costco, and a railroad track right next to the Costco, and all these power lines. And I had somebody I told this story to later say that it was probably the power lines and, the railroad track. It wasn't necessarily the Costco. The weird thing, if there's that same person, he died in that Costco parking lot years later. So, he and I were really tight. He was my ex-father-in-law, and he was really a deep seeker. And he randomly died of a heart attack in that parking lot. But why that Costco? I don't know. Is there a little time slip thing? A little like time loop? I don't know. In any case, I remember that so clearly. But then I moved along those power lines to a point that I went from that point to the point where I was my next awareness. I've never been to Chicago, but I knew I was in Chicago, and I was in these people's house that had high ceilings, and there were this African-American couple, very brightly colored walls, very Afrocentric, like a lot of masks on the walls, but like modern people. I could draw pictures of them. He had a dashiki, like they were very like African culturally, but in Chicago. So why Chicago? I have no idea what this was about. But I was in the upper corner of their townhouse with my companion, and me thinking, the fuck am I doing here? Like, why here? Like, who are these people? Why, what's going on? But aware. And suddenly the woman, she became aware of me, and she was not happy to see me. And she went and she got a broom and she started screaming at me and yelling. And her husband, her partner came in after, and they did not want me there. So that freaked me out. And then because I was so freaked out about being chased off and seen, I woke up but I wasn't asleep. So my eyes flew open, but the way it is, like when you wake up from in the middle of the night or anything, you like wake up groggily. I was not groggy. My eyes just went bing. I was just slammed back into my body, wide awake. And so, like why there? What did that all mean? What was the significance of that? And what did they see when they saw me? If we can suspend disbelief that this wasn't just some crazy dream of mine, that I was literally, my consciousness was someplace in Chicago in these people's home, what did they see? Was she psychic, or
was it an orb? Yeah. Or just,
was it an orb? I was somewhat offended though, that she thought that I was malevolent. I was like, no. I'm just some dumbass floating around, like messing around without a body. Like, and so, I guess you could say I sort of learned that, like, be a little more responsible with like what you're doing, sort of. I'm not sure what my companion, who and what they were. I sense more of a kind of feminine energy, but more of like a quiet teacher, kind of like, okay, this is something. So, the next day, I for sure felt like that all happened. Still to this day, like I said, I remember it. It was not a dream. So I knew that it was, what it did do is solidify what, that OBEs are possible. And then secondly, what are ghosts anyway? Was I ghost?
Yeah.
And, then of course my father-in-law, who I spoke of, was, more than thrilled at this news. So we shortly after ended up moving into a family property that it was technically his house, but he didn't spend any time there. So we took over that house, and there was some energy there. Some things happened in that house and stuff. So all with this sort of energy and kind of managing that, and not all necessarily light stuff. My kids saw some stuff there, and I still think there's something there. And then also there was like some little bit of strife in that house. There would seem to be some other kind of influences. And I was always trying to clear it, make it light, various things. And it's not that it was all bad or it was this constant haunting or anything like that, but I was also still working on this stuff. And so my father-in-law, he was like, well, next time you do it, come visit me at my shop, because he lived at his shop. And I was like, okay, dude, I'll try, I'll see what I can do. I was not successful with that. But he did impart to me, if you do it again, like do something relevant. Don't just, float around. And so he was a Reiki master, and he pushed me really hard on the, like he was like Reiki level 3, and he was always pushing me, bringing people over, got me my attunements. And he was always like, let's do Reiki. I got a live one here. And he'd bring people over and we'd do Reiki together. And, like, he's just a funny dude. And also open to absolutely any conspiracy. We'd talk for hours, and I'd be like, I've been here for 6 hours. I gotta go. Just a fun guy. I miss him a lot. But anyway, I decided to practice. I woke up in the middle of the night again, and I had moved pretty recently into this house. So I was like, okay, well, if I wake up in the middle of the night, because, there's always something waking me up in the middle of the night, I'm going to give it a shot again. And I had some lucid dreams just previous to that, some kind of weird things, like the roof was not on this room, and seeing stuff happen in like the universe, even though I knew I was dreaming. Like it was starting to heat up with some interesting consciousness stuff. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try an out of body again. And I did. I woke up middle of the night, and this technique was somewhat similar as if you can feel yourself starting to drift a little bit. You're starting to maybe have some imagery, like you feel like you're going to be dreaming or you're starting to fall asleep. Then to see if you can roll out of your body. I think this was one of Monroe's techniques, is like the roll technique. And so I did it, just randomly. And because I tried, it's not like I didn't try a bunch. I tried a bunch and failed way more times than I was successful. But this time I rolled out. And one of the big events.
You just like.
No, you're not physically rolling out. It's just it's just your energy body rolling out of your physical body, or?
That's right. So the key, I think, is being aware of your sleeping body. Which is not easy to do, I don't think. But if you really think about it, you kind of know when you're falling asleep. You kind of know when you're starting to drift. And if you've placed your intent to stay conscious through that process and do one of these kind of exercises, like I feel like it takes a couple of nights. Like if you've said it a few nights in a row, if you're like, I'm going to try it tonight, then it's kind of in your consciousness that this is what you're attempting to do. And there's a part of your mind that, if your will is there, it kind of stays with you. Like I said, it takes practice, and even the ones where I was successful, it's not like I have any magic thing. Well, I did this. I just kept practicing. I was like, maybe it's like trying to hit a base hit, like one of these times I'm going to swing and hit that ball. And, so in this case, the rolling that I did is I felt like my intent was to roll out of my body. So I just slowly took my kind of conscious mind and was like, I'm going to roll onto the floor. And so it worked, and I rolled over, but my body stayed like a corpse, like flat, just like my body in bed. And I knew it. I knew that I was hovering above the floor and that my body was above me in the bed. And because I'd done it before, I was like, okay, cool. I'm not even going to look back, because I'm going to try and stay in this. And I remember Dave's words, like, have an intent, like do something. So I had floated through the wall, and when I had gone through the window, I didn't really notice how the window felt. But in this case, I went so slowly through the wall, I could feel how the like joists and the stucco and all of that felt, this like weird density. And I was also marveling at myself that didn't throw me back into body. So I was as surprised as anybody, still, if I was hearing somebody tell a story, I might be skeptical, but that's what happened. So I went out. The most recent serious life event is that my dad had passed away, and those some few interesting things that happened with his passing. But in any case, grief. I was super tight with my dad, and anyway, I floated through the wall, and then I was hovering over the grass, and I was able to observe stuff. And this was before I was doing any ayahuasca or anything. but it was very ayahuasca-like because there was a color spectrum that isn't here. So I was looking at that. I was like, is it dark out or is it light out? And why is everything this like pearlescent sort of rainbow? I was very like, whoa, but I was still on my back, kind of like my body was. And I'm hovering just above the grass. And then I thought, well, I guess I should like try and do something, like I'm going to tell Dave about this, So I was like, I just made the request. I was like, can I see my dad? And let's go see my dad. And then I just got this sort of download that was like, no, we can't do that. Well, you're not ready for that. And so I was just I could feel this little breeze on me as well. And I was like, well, if I can't see my dad, well, how about God? So all of a sudden I started moving. I started moving up the street and I was looking around and I was hovering about 6 inches off the ground. And I could feel like, like the sort of air and like it was sort of chilly and everything. And anyway, I floated up the street about a block and a half to this neighbor's house. And there was this tree. And I had looked at the neighbors. One of the neighbors that I looked across the street had some sort of Asian address artwork. And I was like, I'm going to come back and I'm going to find that, which I never found. I went back and I looked at the house. And I'm like, it ain't there. Like, what the hell? But anyway, I went under this tree. It? Say again.
You're going to swipe it? No, you're
yeah, mine. So I went up under this tree. There is a tree there, but it's not the tree that was in this sort of alternate reality. But anyway, floated under the tree, but the tree itself was like a lot like Avatar tree, had all these little lit up things in it. And I was just delighted. I was just in this like feeling of delight. Right. And so I floated under the tree, still only about 6 inches off the ground. And I'm like this, like a corpse just under this tree floating around. And then I watched this like drop of water. It was like dew fall slowly. And then it hit me right in the thigh. And then as soon as I saw this like drop of water hit my thigh, then I had this like overpoweringly phenomenal awareness of everything. I mean, it was very much like ayahuasca. Like I was it all. It was like a massive download of knowledge. And, that did snap me back into my body because it was, it was so overpowering. And, I couldn't catch my breath for probably days. Like, what did I just see? What did I just experience? But so, I asked to see God and that's what I got. And so I would say it was such a powerful out of body experience that it was kind of like, I was like, okay, I'm good. Even though I had a couple more where I did some flying stuff and I saw some like alternate realities. Like in this one, there was a second story on the house we had, which we never built. I don't know what was going on there, but, and then every once in a while I'll go kind of lucid in a dream and I'll decide I could probably fly right now and I'll fly, not that often though. However, at the same time, I think there were signs that I was going to be pursuing the plant medicine stuff that was like pregame. And so, I think that might've been a little bit part of it. Cause I think it's all connected in one person's life. It's all connected.
Do you think that your guide in that realm is the one that you saw as a kid, your invisible friend?
That's a good question. There were two. So the two,
like, are those the traditional spirit guide kind of thing, do you think? Or
that's
your higher selves? I mean, I know our friend Brady does the roll out method. He rolls out and he seems to think all those entities are your different selves, like different layers of yourself. He thinks there's all these higher selves that you're kind of in that realm with.
Yeah. I could get with that.
Different aspects, maybe even.
For sure. Cause like our ego, right, is us dividing from the space of non-duality. So at what level is it a spectrum? Are there spectrums where we are 100% in a space of non-duality, where we are the whole, and then there's here, and then everything between. Is there spaces where we're kind of us but kind of not? We've got these other aspects of ourselves, in those spaces of non-duality, the in Lakesh, like you literally are the other me, we are one kind of thing. And that's why hippies get such a, people that do psychedelics get such a bad rap, because you can't bring that back and sound sane, that we're all one kind of thing. However, in some deep ayahuasca journeys, probably a half a dozen, I have seen myself from my higher self, and the way that I feel about, the way I feel about myself as I call it Big Whitney and Little Whitney. And the way Big Whitney feels about Little Whitney is she loves her very much. So when, and that's why I think where some of the great healing can come with those protocols is the self-love thing. So with the way he has described it, that, it's kind of in keeping with that there's a higher self. I can't even call it me, because it's more like, and not just a we, me and her. If you follow me with that, it's a we, like us, you, me. That's us, is this greater whole that has the understanding of all. And then us, the three of us in our little walking around bodies and our, everything that we think is so important, in our cars and our jobs and our bills and our, when we're there as the higher self, it's almost as if, I believe we kind of look at the us part as, kind of like little kids, like little children.
Like it's more real there than here.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Very hard to bring back. Very hard to come back and talk to your spouse about, or your friends. Almost impossible. Like I tried in the beginning, I'd be like, somebody's got to call the network and tell them. And then after a while, I just realized it's such a kind of personal thing, or talking to people like you guys, that can understand expanded consciousness talk. Not everybody's interested though. Not everybody can go there. They don't just have the bandwidth to even have an interest. So, what percentage of the population does? I think there is a percentage. Maybe they're the ones that propel the race forward. I don't know. I have a little theory on that. So,
does it have anything to do with the last couple of years, or?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, look around, for God's sake. I like to think that people are waking up, and I also like to think like maybe I'm the crazy one. Maybe I'm the one that's just like, woo. I don't think so, though. I don't think so.
I do want to. I heard some of your story on another show, and you kind of teased that you're shaman, and he had something happened to him, and I don't know if that's. I felt like there was something important there, but selfishly, I didn't get to hear what happened there. And that kind of ties into your psychedelic experiences, but I don't know if you can get into that or not, or.
I can, and I don't think I've actually said what happened to him anywhere yet. So, brief part of it about finding him was amazing. I was just committed to doing this thing, and then I found him and ended up finding a person of great integrity, and that I think that was the real deal. I think what he was. Ultimately, I think what he was doing was bringing just a little bit too much light. I think that kind of can happen where we've got these sort of avatars that show up and they're bringing too much healing and too much light. And the darkness kind of came and stopped the party.
Wow.
Yeah. And witnessing that and all of the things involved, because it's a pretty involved story. If I can summarize it, I had been working with him for a couple of years, pretty intensely, and
with ayahuasca, right?
with ayahuasca and plant dietas, these master plants from the Amazon that are not psychoactive, but they're believed to be master plant spirits, teachers. There was a few that these dietas they're really designed to be done in the Amazon to commune with a master plant, master teacher. I did the best I could in LA, working and all of that. There's a lot of distractions. It's the ideal scenario is to go down to the Amazon, have this restricted diet, a lot of fasting, no sex, no distractions, and you just commune with this plant. And the plants give you insights and teachings and that kind of thing. And even with my limited capacity, just trying to still pay the bills. And I still feel like those master plants have taught me quite a lot. The insights do come, and you have to question, would I have thought of that on my own? Have I invited in a spirit? I had, I kind of went also with the dieta plants. I also had to pull back and do some deep thinking and discernment about, am I inviting something in that is, what am I doing? I have to really think about this. And then ultimately came to the conclusion that the plants are, they're of nature. And I've come to the conclusion that things that are of nature are of the light. Things are unnatural are not. So kind of another topic, but so several plant dietas with this shaman. He was good at guiding and, sort of helping with the discipline, because it's, like I said, a restricted diet, and then some initiation type stuff. And then with these initiations, it'd be like weekly drinking of ayahuasca or 3-night ceremonies, things like that. Calling in, spirit animals and things like that. Some pretty deep work. And, I feel like I was right in the middle of it with him. We were just getting started. He was going to open a retreat center in Mexico, and somewhere along the way, he had several people that he was working with, but I would say that there was maybe about a dozen that were working really tightly with him, the closest people. So we were a bit of a community. And he was very good at keeping it non-culty and he never
non-guru-y.
Non-guru-y. Even though people tried to worship him, he would push that away and he would stop that. He was very much like, he taught me, loud and clear, that follow no one, follow your own protocol, design your own protocol to figure out what you're doing for you, not what I've told you to do, not what somebody else has told you to do. This is the path of the shaman, right? So he was married, and so he was very handsome and he was very charismatic. I had just gotten remarried and was very much in love with my husband. Plus, this shaman wasn't my type, so he appreciated very much that I wasn't, drooling over him. So I think that for that reason, he kind of took me under his wing in a different way. And he wanted me to kind of help him with the women, because it's not, I don't think it's uncommon for people in those expanded states to feel very emotional and connected to the person, the ayahuasquero or the curandero, especially if they're super handsome and charismatic. That was just happening a lot. And it was a little frustrating for him. And so he kind of, in some ways, wanted some help. And I was starting to help kind of facilitate some of these things. I had witnessed so much, and I had been there and gone through so much. And, it was kind of one of the crew, it came to trust me. And but also he had confided in me that he felt like he was under psychic attack. He'd confided in a few people. And as that kind of thing progressed, I had never, how would I have necessarily seen anything like this other than what I had experienced myself? I had never watched like somebody that was running a thing. And also, these regular, he even had a little bit of fame, like YouTube page and followers for other stuff. He was kind of in the, what you'd call like sort of the self-help sort of community, like he'd done some seminars and wrote a book and things like that. And then he had did the shamanism and the ayahuasca on the side, regularly going to the Amazon for these long retreats with shamans down there and bringing back knowledge and all this stuff and teaching and all that kind of thing. He was great though. And he was also just so, especially I feel like with me, like just no ego. It was just like, where are you at? He was, anything I'd say to him, he'd be like, okay, let's do this. Or he had great integrity. But also through these plant medicine ceremonies, healing a lot of people. Like I would see people stop drinking in one night. These people with a heroin addiction just put it down, and then also a couple of times what I could only call an exorcism in ceremony. And I mean, crazy shit, but also deep shamanic work. And so when what he felt was a psychic attack started to come around, he was very sure it came through his wife, and his wife changed everything about her. And that went real dark real fast. So I had to withdraw, and I had to really think about what I was doing, who I was involved with, how serious this is. Why am I witnessing this? Where am I at in my personal journey? Because I was developing a relationship with the medicine myself, gotten to a point where I'd had a lot of healing, had a lot of understanding about all the major, tenets of virtue, unconditional love and forgiveness and grace and compassion. And, I'm rushing through it, but I wasn't rushing through it then. I'd had many, many nights where I had to contemplate deeply through ayahuasca visions, like what is true compassion, that kind of thing. And because I didn't know what it was until she taught me, or, a lot of people that do the medicine will call her a she. And so I was able to experience those things in all dimensions and be able to come back here and be like, I understand deeply on a level that I can't even explain what these things are, at least how they affect my life or how I see them in the world, that kind of thing. But then also watching these other people heal. And I think that he became a beacon for a dark attack. And there's a lot of details. However, there was a sudden onslaught of attacks on him. All of a sudden, all of these women banded together. And on more than one occasion, I saw these women with like their eyes black, like no color in their eyes, just black eyes. And I've seen that a few times in my life, not in ceremony, but just with walking around. And these people always end up being dark. It's not like I see it every day, but once in a while I'll still see it. And every time I've seen it, it's significant. But for sure in ceremony, when I've seen that, I've seen it a couple of times, and there's something to that. I don't know exactly.
Well, you also saw something come out in ceremony, right?
For sure. I've seen it a couple of times. And so with that medicine, it's mostly something, journeys that you're on your mat and your eyes closed kind of thing. But if you are called to have your eyes open and helping facilitate, or there's various things you're called to do. Sometimes you're called to dance or play music or something. And you can be seeing the whole spectrum of colors and the shamanic realms with all three eyes. And so that's quite an experience. But also when you see somebody in that state that is dark, that does happen. So, just word of caution. It's these ayahuasca ceremonies, if you've ever heard anybody say, oh, that's really dark stuff, it can be. And if you're not spiritually equipped, or it's being run by someone that doesn't know what they're doing, those things can happen. And I've seen it. And it also, I don't want to say it scared me off. It gave me great caution, as well as what ends up happening with, this shaman. So he confided in me through this. I did some work with him, trying to help protect him from this. What he decided to do was go down to Peru, and he was going for a month, and he was going to work with some shamans down there. And he decided that he was going to work with a medicine called tohei. And so tohei is, if you've ever seen a datura flower, it's forget what it's also called. It's a big white flower. You see it growing in the desert, and it's a deep shamanic medicine, but also very toxic if overdone. And so it's typically used, according to him, and I've also heard elsewhere, to fight dark spirits, to fight dark entities. So it's not your typical medicinal psychedelics spirit medicine. Essentially, if you're going to go fight the devil, you go into these realms with this particular plant spirit. And so I for sure was concerned about him, even though he had partook in tohei before with shamans in Peru. This was to go fight some battle, some dark battle that I feel like I could understand, because he had helped. Just to back up a second, I was going through a time in my life where I was being pursued, and I don't want to say stalked, but I was going through a very hard time with a mentally ill family member who I also think had some sort of dark attachment, had to get a restraining order. She was after me and lived in the same building, and essentially, my husband and she owned the building together. It was a long, ugly, gross story, but she was terrible. So I feel like she was sending some of her darkness my way, and some sleep paralysis type stuff. And he divulged that he witnessed that, and there was no way that he could have known, that kind of thing. So I knew that and we also had some shared ayahuasca visions. So I knew that there's some sort of, at least for me, anecdotal proof that those shamanic realms have a reality to them. It's not just a dream. It's not just a psychedelic. It's not just crazy hippie talk. There's other realms, and witnessing this light and dark battle going on, because I'd already had a little bit of experience with it on my own. So now with the help of this, sacred plant medicine, I got, I could see it more regularly. I could go there and witness how things kind of work in that realm a little more clearly. However, I didn't ever expect it to turn to this. So he went to Peru. We were, the very last ceremony that we had together was this very dark ceremony. And we were going to leave after that ceremony, and I was going to go with him down to Mexico, because this was down in San Diego, and we were going to go to Mexico and look at a retreat center, because he was really committed to, he wanted to go check that out before he went to Peru. And this terrible storm ended up coming, and he said, well, let's do it when we get back, when I get back. And so he went down, and he never came back. And so I got the news just on this really crazy, weird day. Got the news I was stuck in a 7-hour traffic jam, and so I couldn't move. I couldn't go. I couldn't do anything but just sit with this news. And he, as the story goes, he ended up working with a lady shaman down there, and they kind of lost track of him. And he was working with the tohei, and the group that sort of, there was a guy that kind of took over for him after he left. I don't believe that he was necessarily equipped. But within that group, it was kind of let's just not talk about it. Let's just make it go away. And I was never comfortable with that. I still believe that, the official story was that he had a heart attack, and this guy was a picture of health. And, I believe that there was some other sort of, some other agenda that took out the work that, that there was an effort against him to stop him from the work with the light that he was doing. So things got real weird with that group. Like there was another, and also the shaman told me, he said, I have to go deal with this darkness. And he had an accent, but he even said it's like whack-a-mole. You whack it one place and it'll pop up again. You have to stay on top of it. And so, with his accent, he's like, it's like whack-a-mole, And so it was like whack-a-mole. As soon as that happened, this dark energy came into that ceremony circle. And, I ended up extricating myself from that. And I still think that there's someone out there, this person is practicing, running ayahuasca circles. She's a darkie, So anyway, another thing that happened with him and that oddly, it made a YouTube video. It got posted on some, website in Iquitos, some like makeshift news site where some guys on some dirt bikes riding in the mud with a camera went and found his body and stuff. It was really wild.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then,
so is that what you mean by they lost track of him? Like physically lost track of him?
Well, he was at a retreat center, but then all of a sudden the story just goes very weird. First, we heard that he was found on a path. Then he was found in his room. Everybody had a different story. The ayahuasca trade down there, or the ayahuasca tourist trade down there is big. So I don't think they wanted any. I personally don't think that he was drinking ayahuasca. I think it was Tohei, and it's very, very powerful, very strong, and in the wrong hands, wrong dosage. It's very, it's lethal. So that's what I think happened on the physical level. On the spiritual, I think something else. So after that, I was pretty shook up about that. I tried, I did keep working with the medicine, but I just wasn't totally sure. I needed some answers. I don't know that I've ever gotten the answers. However, I decided to do a dieta in honor of him. I also went and did some Vipassana meditation. He had told me, I really want you to do Vipassana when he was here. And so shortly after, I went and did my first Vipassana retreat. And, he was right. It was, I've done a couple since, and there's really something extremely powerful there. It's a whole other topic, but anyway, I decided to do a dieta, a plant dieta, sort of in honor of him. And when I did that, I had this experience where I was doing what's called a limpia bath. You take it's essentially any plants that you feel drawn to, but you could take some sacred plants, flowers, herbs, whatever, put it in a bath, and it's sort of like a spirit body cleansing. And so I had this special mixture of limpia flowers and stuff in this bath. And so I was sitting in the bath, and he just came to mind. I thought, like Alfonso, his name was Alfonso. He'd be really like stoked that I'm doing a dieta and doing the limpia baths and stuff. And all of a sudden, this like old washcloth thing that was up on the shaving mirror above the bath, it fell on my head, and it had been there for weeks. Like how it fell off, I have no idea, because it was like this sort of loofah thing that was like dried in the shape of the shaving mirror. It'd been up there for way too long. And there's no way it should have fallen off, but it falls off. And I just look at it, I'm like, what the actual, like it got knocked off onto me, and then I just felt inspired. I was like, I got to go look on my computer. I don't know why. I got to go check my email. And so I checked my email, and there was this solicitation for this ayahuasca ceremony with these Colombian shamans. And I didn't sign up for this newsletter. I have no idea why it came to me. And so I signed up for a retreat like right then. I got my wallet, and I'm like, okay, I'm going. And so I ended up going to this, and there was 10 shamans. It was a huge ceremony and circle. And leading up to this, I had drank the medicine several times since he passed, but I was getting absolutely no effects. I would have take drink after drink, and I would just sit there and had with nothing. So I thought that there was some sort of block. And I talked through an interpreter to these shamans and said, can you grow immune to this? Like what's going on? And they laughed at me and gringa, And so for sure, they gave me a very, very large drink, and I had a very deep experience. And that's a long story. However, the shamans, they sing these icaros in ceremony, and I could hear my shaman's voice in their voices. And so I took that as a sign that that he was okay, and that he had moved to a place where, that there wasn't darkness. And so then the next day there was like a questions for the shaman, if we had any through the interpreter. And, I had said, I thought I heard, the shaman that I was working with. And so they agreed. They knew that he was there. They said, of course he's here. Like, why would you question such a thing? Yes, we know he's here. We knew he was here. And so then I asked, well, what now? Where is he? And they like talk to each other, and and then through the interpreter, they said, well, he wants you to know that there is a new plant in the Amazon that he started, essentially, that his energy started this new plant in the Amazon. So might seem like maybe not that big a deal to me, but that all of that combined I was able to put it to rest. However, what I learned through it was there's some dark shit out there, even though I already knew that just because you're working with these plant medicines and stuff doesn't mean that that any place is necessarily immune to. I mean, look at the Catholic Church. Like they're supposedly doing a good thing, and there's like, one of the darkest places on the planet. So I think if there's a lot of light going on, then there's an infiltration that happens. And so, my shaman was right. It's like whack-a-mole. And so, not to get preachy, but I think in each of our individual lives, we have to continually, sort of restake our flag every day in the sand and say what side we're on. And that's what I had to do in the night terrors, is say, no, I'm like, absolutely. I'll never succumb to the dark ever, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's great. I was going to ask you if you had communicated with him at all, like even, mediumship wise, or just tried to sort of reach out or visit him in the other realms or anything. But yeah, that's interesting through all the shamans.
So like with the mediumship, it's very hard to read for yourself, because you don't know if you're just calling things from memory, or if if I'm reading for someone close to me. It's very hard. It's so reading for strangers or people that are more distant, that pulling stuff out that can be actually validated as something that I couldn't possibly know. So for me to like try and reach him, as I've been doing more and more training with mediumship, with the courses that I take, and because I've worked on it in the last few years, and I do some fairly regular courses at the Arthur Findlay College, and
spiritualism,
yeah.
Awesome.
So what happens a lot is he will come through to other student mediums and other mediums that I've spoken to, and he's unmistakable the way he comes through. Such a unique personality, and unique, like where he was from and how he was and how he looked, and, his name. I've had other mediums come through with like his name and stuff. And so like he makes his presence known, I believe, sort of unmistakably. So
how long has it been since he passed?
It was 2016.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, so that's that story.
Fantastic. So what are you up to lately then? Mediumship wise, like you're doing that, and
yeah. I've been so in the normie life, I've been really super busy. So when I get too busy and like in the grounded world, then I feel like I get grumpy, and then I'll have to like tell people that like, I can't come today because I need to like, work with some, with some people like with the mediumship and stuff like that. Cause it's not like, I make my money with art, and so like, a lot of people's pastime or hobby is art, but it's the other way for me. Like the hobby and the mediumship is more of my spiritual pursuit, like my way of being in service, I guess. So,
what's the art world like right now? It must be kind of weird too with everything. I mean, I feel like that whole art creativity world is very sort of teetering on, I don't know.
So like art and creativity and art world, like making money are two different things. Like, if you can follow that, like people that are a success in the art world aren't necessarily good artists. So like Hunter Biden is a perfect example, just like you could say even like I believe there's just so much corruption everywhere. And I was disgruntled with the whole LA art scene a long time ago. So for me, like I joke that I'm just an art whore, like if you want me to like, come, distress your cabinet, I'll do that. Or I had somebody ask me if I could pickle the wood on their porch. And I was like, inside my head, I'm like, the fuck is pickling? But then I Google it and I'm like, yeah, sure, I could do that. I've watched some YouTube. I'm like, sure, I'll come pickle your porch. I don't do so much of the faux finishes anymore. Like it's a lot of commercial murals and paintings. I have a lot of, painting commissions and stuff, and make some of my, own art, do some ceramics and that kind of thing as well sometimes. And I also teach art. So, I've definitely, it's more like normie career though.
Yeah.
Like when I get the time, a lot of the sort of fine art that I do is very shamanic based, and there's a limited market for that, but I don't care. I don't give a shit. That's
I was going to ask you about fine art, but that's a whole other show. Probably if there's a whole conspiracy of money laundering and
100%
stuff and fine art. So
oh my God, when you're talking that kind of money, I mean, it's not even about the art anymore. So, I mean, I think you probably figured it out that I'm pretty cynical when it comes to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that, I just don't trust.
Yeah.
I don't trust.
Where can our listeners find your art?
Huh?
Where can our listeners find your art?
Well, because I have a different name as an artist than the name that I go by here, I tend to be a little more reluctant to say, mostly because there's a whole side of my life that would probably probably call the white coats on me. You know what I'm saying? So, and then, the other thing, like with the mediumship, I for sure, like on my website, I will charge for that. I will also, if somebody really wants that, I don't have to. If I've got the time and I can do it, like, because I love doing that. And that's where I am in service. So people will be like, oh, well, you're trying to get rich off of that. No, never. I guess it's a different mindset, because I do know people, like I have a quote friend who's a Reiki master, and she's a terrible person, and that's what she does for money. I'm like, you're so full of shit. She's a terrible person. So, I'm not that, like with the mediumship, I find it sacred. However, time is money, and also people want to pay for services that they find of value, so I don't know. It was a kind of roundabout question to not answer the question about that.
No, that's okay. Well, where did we find your mediumship then?
At my, that website is called whitneyfoxmedium.com. And then I've got a little IG that's tricksterfox7. If anybody wants to say hey or reach out or anything.
And maybe we can have you back on when you find the new plants in the Amazon. We can talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. I wonder if that's ever going to come around again. I don't know.
Right on. Thanks. This has been
Right on.
great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for coming on the show, Whitney. Sorry I was late, but that was a great chat.
Yeah. I didn't get to talk much with you, Darren, but I listened to you guys a lot. So I'm super stoked to come and hang with you.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a blast.
Yeah, cool.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Bye.
I'm so far away, but I can't escape. It's raining down on my eyes, so I'm gonna climb to the top of the world. But sometimes you have to find the bottom